Okay, hello, welcome on today's exercise. So today I'm gonna show you how to use Room library on Android to interact with SQLite database. So I'm starting from a basic project. This is just a basic activity created from a new project and then basic activity. Nothing fancy here. One thing that you might need to modify is this compile SDK. Some of the new libraries, those Android X things, do require API 31, excuse me, to be used for compilation. So you will need to adjust that to API 31. But I'm compiling for API 30, and I have a Pixel device as a emulator, and we're gonna use that for throughout the class. So we can just do a short check. We can run something and then it does some stuff. Of course it doesn't work correctly, but it's not something that we will worry about now. Anyway, let's start. So the exercise, you definitely have seen that. This is the SQLite database management. You can download it from a portal where we use it. Where it is on the class page. So what we want to do is we want to well, basically use a database to view something. So yeah, let's start, and we'll start by we're gonna go through the exercise together. I'm gonna show you how to implement that. And at the end, I hope you'll be able to replicate that in a simple application, perhaps using a little different functionality, something of more of your liking. Okay, so we already have an activity, which is great. Then next thing we need to do is we need to add Android X Room, this library for interaction with the database. So let's add it. So it's implementation, and this is Android X Room run time 2. I don't actually know which one is the newest one, so I'm gonna go with 2.0.0 and then see if Android Studio complains about that. And then I'm gonna use an annotation processor for Android X. Android X room compiler. It's again the same thing. 2.0. I'm gonna use this one. Android Studio says it's not the newest one. Use 2.3. I'm saying fine. Let's use 2.3. And here it says, well, replace it with specification because I don't know what's gonna happen. So I'm gonna go do the same and just use the newest one. Right, so now we need to sync. And yeah, so we should already have that indexed. Good. So let's start with creating our data model first. So let's create a data package, and we're gonna create. I'm gonna use Java here, just because the exercise uses it. If you want to use Kotlin, that's fine. I don't mind that. It's pretty much similar. It just has a little different flavor. So I'm gonna stick to Java here. You do what you prefer. So we have some 8 items, and those items are, and we're gonna call them entities. And the table for it will be items. And then it has some elements like a primary key, which can be auto-generated, and this is gonna be public int. We're gonna have all the public items just because they are, well, that's basically a data class. So in Kotlin you'd use a data class for that, which means everything's public, and we don't need all those getters and setters because they don't really add any extra information. So we're gonna call it first main text, and this will be public string main text, and Java uses capital string. And column info, the next one is secondary text. And this is public string sec text. And then we're gonna have a column which will be called rating, and this will be a public int rating. And then we're gonna have a column info age, name age, and this will also be a public int age. And we're not gonna go into the gender stuff because well, there's no point of that. I mean, we have enough data here. Right, so we have imports, we should have everything now. Now, next thing is we need to create an interface to access those data entities. So we're gonna call it data access object, DAO in short. So we're gonna call it an item DAO. So this is the and this is actually an interface and not a class. Interface DAO, and now we're gonna annotate it with DAO. So the annotation processor knows that it's actually something that it has to fill in. So we're gonna have a list of item data, get all items. We're gonna call it like that. Import list, of course, and then we have some query for that. And our query will be fairly simple. This will be just a select all from items. Oh, and we can order by ID ascending. Next, we're gonna have by the same thing but sorted by rating. By rating. Okay, let's call it sorted. Order by rating, and we're gonna have a descending rating because we're mostly interested in the good stuff. And not the bad stuff. And then we're gonna have delete, so a query that we'll call delete from items, which we're not gonna use, but since the instruction says we want to have it, let's have it. And then we're gonna have an insert with onConflict equals to so whenever we get a conflict on the insert, so this is usually a problem when you have things like constraints. So for example, second item with the same primary key, but just the same item basically, or something that when you have referential constraints, this kind of stuff. So we're just gonna ignore all these things because it's more about handling the database than Android interaction. So not in scope of this class. Insert, and we're gonna insert the item, and then we're gonna delete item data item. So this might be a little over the top with deletion, because actually it would be enough to just get an ID, but anyway, we can go with that. It's good enough. Next thing is the database, which we need to create. So the convention that we're gonna use is a singleton instance of the database. Probably not always considered the best of all options, but works pretty well when you have something that you actually know that you will have only one instance of. A database in Android is usually this kind of resource, especially when we do this kind of simple class like stuff. So we're just gonna create a database again for the room item data class, and this is gonna be version 1, and that's needed because those Android libraries also handle things like migrations, which we're not gonna use today, but which are pretty important part of room database of a general development, especially if you have a long-lived application. Public abstract DAO, and our our DAO is called item DAO. And let's just call it DAO. And then we're gonna have a private static DB called instance. And then we're gonna have a static synchronized DB get database file context let's call it CTX. And this is synchronized because there are multiple threads that can access it, and it's static because it's basically will return this thing. But since this thing may not be initialized yet, we need to check if instance equals null, and if it does, then we're gonna initialize it. So instance equals room database builder CTX get application context. We could also require application context from the callee, but from the caller, but well, doesn't matter really. Then we're gonna have a DB class, and then it's gonna be called item DB. And we're gonna allow main thread queries because it's not always allowed. So if the queries can be long, then you probably don't want to allow them on the main thread, because your app will seem like it has frozen, and you might like frozen but not frozen apps. Instance, and we return that. So that's basically the database part. So we create the instance, and yeah, now we're gonna create data repository. And here really we're just gonna cut the corners really really roughly, because we're gonna make something that's called a monostate. So a monostate is something that has basically only static data, and everything that it uses is global. So that's basically a global variable in a disguise. Not a very good disguise though, but it's good enough for our case. So we can go with it. And by the way, in case of an exercise like this, it's fine to use patterns that are not strictly recommended in production development, because the production ones are introduce some more dependencies that might be slightly harder to track sometimes. Not always, but sometimes they may be. Okay, so now we're gonna have those three recommended variables here, like list item data which is data in our case. Then we have private static item DAO, DAO, and then we have a private static DB, which is called the DB, and then we're gonna have a public item repository application context. So what we can do is we can say DB equals to DB get database context, and then DAO we can say DB DAO. Yeah. Technically, we could also say that data equals DAO get all items. We don't have to do that. So both are fine. And then we want to have three basic methods that we're gonna use. So you'll see that we don't use, for example, delete all. What we do is list item data. We don't want clip data here. Item data get data list which will just assign data to DAO get all items, and then we're gonna return data. So you might ask if we need the data list, and we actually don't. We can just like, you know, remove that from here and not care that much for now. So we can say DAO get all items. We're not gonna read it much. And then next thing will be void insert item data item, which is a DAO insert item, and same thing for deletion item data item, which is DAO delete item. Yep. So that's all the access methods which we need, and now we need a list of our items so that we can display them. So let's create a new fragment, and we're gonna call it a list fragment because it's gonna be a list of something. And we're gonna call it item data fragment, and we're gonna have one column. Yep. Object kind, yeah, let it be item. And we can have yeah, it's good enough. Let's not worry about the names. Okay, so next thing we need to do is we need to adjust our fragments. So our fragments are those things that we have here. I'm gonna show you the code for that. So we have a list of items, and the list is basically a recycler view. And we also have items, and this is for each of the items. And here we have item 1 sub item, and this is basically item and sub item, and content is sub item. And in our case, we're gonna have some random image for all of them, and then these two texts that we have in our data. So some random image, let's say, will be based on ID, then two texts and rating, and maybe age. Maybe we can also have that. Where are we? Here are we. Okay, so we're gonna have a linear layout here, which is horizontal, and that's fine. So we're gonna start with an image view, which will be basically wrap content, so as small as possible. And we're gonna have an Android ID equals ID image, or you can call it avatar image, because that's basically an avatar. And we need some more things. Content description. Yeah, we'll call it avatar. And yeah, so Android really likes to have those stuff, those strings extracted, so we can humor it, right? And then we have a linear layout, which will be again wrap content, I think. And then we're gonna close it. We're gonna close it, and inside this layout, we're gonna say text view. Yeah, again, I think we can have wrap content here, or height. Actually, we can no, height here should be match parent. And there is some text here, and we actually have two texts. And the second one is Android ID equals ID, and that's main text. And then we have a second one, which is second text. And then yeah, let's say we're not gonna have the age here. Maybe we don't care that much. And then finally, we're gonna have an image for image view, which will be wrap content and height of match parent. And actually, here we also want to have a height of match parent. And we're also gonna have an ID here, Android Android ID equals ID, this will be rating. Okay, and yeah, and it likes the content description, which is rating, and let's extract it. Okay, good. And here we want to have a width of match parent and height of wrap content. Yep. So pretty much that's it. And so that's what we get here. List item. Yep. Android ID list. Yeah. So more or less that's it. And let's say, yeah, next thing is the adapter that we need to have. So this thing here, which was already pre-created kindly by Android Studio. And we're gonna get to that after a short break. All right, let's get back to the second part. So let's start with removing the compilation problems here. So we see that there's fragment item data binding does not exist, and that's because the default import goes to storage update data binding, and we actually have it here in a slightly different location. Right. So next thing, our binding and view holder. So we have this placeholder item, which is not exactly what we hold. So what we hold is an item data, which means that we'll have to update it in a few places. So for example, here we have our view holder, which stores some stuff, and this is where is it? It's in yeah. So this content view, we have so these are the text views, which we have in our fragment. So in our fragment we have two text views and two let's see, two image views and two text views. So let's have those two. So we have those two, and we'll call them main text. Second we'll call secondary text, and then we're gonna have a public final image view. Let's call it avatar, and public final image view, and this one we're gonna call rating. And then there is this item, which is not a placeholder item, but in our case it's an item data. And these were not initialized, which is true, of course. So I'm gonna have a main text, which is equal to binding main text, and then I'm gonna have secondary text, which will be binding second text. Then I'm gonna have avatar, which will be binding avatar image. Then I'm gonna have rating, which is equal to avatar rating. Yep. And toString, which we don't really care about right now. So I'm just gonna make it compile. And then on binding holder, so here we bind the exact value. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set, well, first of all, set text. So because of main text, we're gonna set this not to ID but to text, and then next one I'm gonna set it to sec text. Actually, you know what? We can just have this here because it's good enough. And then we're gonna have holder and avatar, which we're gonna set image drawable. Yeah, let's see if we can find some default drawables. Okay, so let's try this. Android R drawable, and so let's say that by default we're gonna have let's say that by default we're gonna use which one? Let's say we're gonna use a plus by button. Asset image is not okay. Wait. Oh yeah, because we want to set image drawable, and this is a drawable. Why not? What's wrong with that? Right, let's compile that and see what's the problem. Yeah, so we have this placeholder items. Still a few places that we had that. So let's see. So by default it takes some list, and we can use just a new list, and that should be fine. We don't need to have items here. And can become oh yeah, of course, because this is the ID of identifier of the drawable, right? Set image. Can we have resource? Yeah. Okay, let's compile it now and see how it goes. Oh yeah, it compiled. Awesome. Now, next thing that we need to do. So since we've already managed to bind most of the things, we still need to bind rating. So let's set resource Android R drawable, and let's say that if holder item rating greater than 3, then we're gonna set a plus, and else we're gonna set a minus. Yep. So let's keep it simple. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to have a listener for the clicks. And this listener, we're gonna call it interaction listener. And I'm gonna create it here. So it will be called interaction listener. And I'm gonna call it, and this was gonna be an interface. It's gonna have void on delete item data. And second thing, which is item data get items and import. Yep. And then this is something that we need to keep in here, I think. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay. So our fragment, list fragment, item data fragment. This is yeah, we're gonna keep a private interaction listener here. And we're gonna create that once a context is attached. So we're gonna have a public and actually override public void on attach context ctx, and we're gonna start with on attach ctx of parent, which is the standard approach, and then we're gonna say if ctx is instance of interaction listener, then we're gonna set listener to ctx, and else what's wrong with that? Right, so no smart casts in Java yet. And otherwise we're gonna just throw new illegal argument exception or something. Not an interaction listener. Good enough for now. Yeah, and basically I think that's the most important thing. And then we need to create the view for this thing. But first let's go to main activity and display the list, because right now we have a lot of stuff written down here, and it might actually be a little confusing at that point. So we're gonna keep that stuff away. Then we're gonna have content main, which is the important thing for us. And then we have a fragment, but it's not a fragment that we actually want here, because it's some navigation fragment. What is it? What is that? DirectX navigation. Okay, so now we need to set the right type of fragment, and we're gonna use our in data fragment. And then we should actually be able to run it and check if it's working. So let's see. Okay, installed, and it crashed, unfortunately, I think. Okay, let's try again. Maybe we'll be able to see. Yeah, we got an error, and the error says that, well, it couldn't inflate this fragment because our context was not an interaction listener, which actually makes sense, right? Because we didn't implement this interface on the context. So now we need to do that, so that we'll be able to start the application. Yeah, sorry. So here we need to have a listener here. And now our listener was called interaction listener, and we need to have this these two methods that are required here. So on delete item and get items. And right now I'm gonna just return new array list, and on remove not do anything, just so that it will start. It says relaunch succeeded, but it failed again, and it failed because what? Let's see, nav controller. Meaning it does not have a nav controller set on. Yeah, because we have this nav thing here. Let's see. Alright, so first of all, let's change this, and then we don't really want a nav graph here, and then this activity has some navigation stuff, which we don't really care about right now. So I'm just gonna remove the navigation things from here because we don't care about that right now. So that's the default setup that Android Studio generates. So maybe perhaps it should be, yeah, it should be better now. We have nothing, and that's mainly because, well, there are no items that we return by default, right? So our activity by default, it doesn't have anything interesting. So what we should add is a repository. Item repository, and we'll call it repo. And let's see if yeah, I think we can have it as an instance element. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say repo equals new item repository this. Yeah, this is not the context, right? This is because it needs an application and not a context. So we're gonna just have this, and then we can already have here repo. Oh yeah, this. Why not? Probably those are not public. Yeah. So let's make them public. Insert get. Yeah. So those three are public now, and we should be able to access them. Get. Come on. Yeah. Because this one is private, and I don't want it to be private. I actually want it to be public. And it does need to be static. If you can avoid having static stuff, it's better to do that. If you can't, then well, you do what you can. And here we do the same, so we do repo delete item I. Yep. So now what we need to do is we need to have some yeah, well, deletes are still not triggered by, but let's not worry about that now. Let's worry about showing the data first. So let's say we have our DAO and some basic objects. So the initial objects we could set in. Well, we can set them in item repository or in DAO. Maybe. Well, DAO is not ours, so no, we can't. We cannot do it here. So we probably need to do it here. So now we return items from database, but let's say we don't really worry about that, and it's not that important for now. So we're gonna just create a few items. And return those items, just to see if it's read correctly by the by main activity. Okay, so now what we're gonna do? We're gonna add some items. New item data, and let's say we're gonna add maybe 3 of those. And of course it won't work if we just do it like that, because right now it's it has a number of nulls. So let's have writing and get 0 main text equals hello, sec text equals world, and I think the last important thing was oh no, I don't think we cared about age, but I'm gonna set it anyway. Let's say we're gonna set it to 19, and then the other 2, let's have them as well. So here I'm gonna do 1, and here I'm gonna do 2. So we have those 3 items, and they should be visible in our application now once we return those. So lunch succeeded. Resource failed to close. Did it work correctly? Did it start? Or not really? Let's try again. Okay, so it's not visible yet, and that's actually understandable because we never set the data in any place, right? Because well, we do have our repository and we do create it, but we never actually set the data anywhere. So it might be, you can see why this might be a problem, right? So what we need to do is we need to initialize our fragment here. So the fragment that we have, we can access it. I think we can even access it here. So should we go by binding, and then no, we can't do that. Why not? We should be able to go to the binding here. Oh, because it's context main, and then context main is yeah, but this should go fine. You know what? I'm just gonna remove this part and copy the item straight here, because this content main doesn't really give us any additional benefit, and we are in a little more we need a little more details to make it clear. Okay, it makes stuff a little more complex. Okay, so let's have support fragment manager, then find fragment by ID. So our ID is our ID, and I don't remember what was there. Fragment content main. Yep. Our ID fragment content main. So this will be our fragment. So let's say and this is actually a specific fragment. So this is item data fragment. So I'm just gonna copy, just gonna cast it like this, and then you know, I would actually want to set the data here. Set data, and my data here would be repo get data list, but we don't have the set data function yet, so we need to create it here. So we're gonna have here maybe public void set data, and this is a list item data. Yep, something like that. And here what we're gonna do inside is we're gonna take our view, our recycler. It's not here. It's can we go by binding? No. We need to go by view. Get. So what do we want to go? We want to get we want to do view get context. No. No. What we want to do is we want to set in the adapter, and our adapter. Where do we have it? Yeah, here it is. Recycler view. It is recycler view, and this is this thing, and we're gonna just save it, and we're gonna save it here. Private recycler view. We're gonna call it an R view, and here we can say that our R view is equals recycler view, and this gives us So we know that this happens on create view, and then we can set data and say our view set. I think we need to set everything here. Set items. Set data. Again, something that we need to create ourselves. Is it? No, we shouldn't need to create ourselves. Okay, give me a second. Oh yeah, because it's not just a recycler view, it's my item recycler view adapter. Yeah, because it's not exactly a view. We really want to use the adapter here, not the view. So then the next thing that we need to do is we need to understand where to get this adapter from, because there is some location where we actually need to have it, and this is this location. So what we should do is set that to our view, and then set the location to our view, and then we have our adapter, and we can set our view, which is a recycler view adapter, which is the thing that we want to have, and then we want to set items on it. So this is the thing that we did not create again, and it's actually in the instructions, so if you just went step by step, you will already have it. But I didn't, so here we encounter that need now. So let's have a set data, which would take a list of item data, items, and here we will just say that values equals items, which we cannot exactly do because this is declared as final. I'm gonna remove that final thing. Yeah, let's start with removing that. Now, once that happens, we actually should notify that the data has changed. Yeah, and Android generally does not like that, and says that, look, you probably should like do something more reasonable and not just tell me to redraw everything, because unidentified dataset change is quite an expensive thing to do, relatively, but anyway, it should work, so let's not worry about it now. And let's see if that's if we've created everything in the right places, or will it fail again. So let's see what happens. So the application started, but the data is not visible again. So now we need to understand why is it not visible, and I'm gonna talk about it after a short break. So we saw that earlier this fragment was not displayed, and that's because its width and height is set to 0. So I'm gonna set its width to match parent and this to wrap content, and let's see what will happen. That's not the final solution because we will need to modify a few more things, but it's already better. I mean, there is something here at least, right? So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna remove those constraints. Or maybe, yeah, I think we can remove those constraints. In this form, they are not really helpful, and we'll probably need to add other constraints because, well, right now it's not unconstrained. Yeah, let's fix that and see what will happen. And no fragments. Yeah, maybe let's not do that. So wrap content, and yeah, we have those constraints. Layout button, which is probably not exactly what we want, because we want our fragment to well, to be to be on top, constrained on top by the this thing, by the toolbar. So as you can see, why can't we do that? Let's see what's the problem. How can we say that we want to have it by toolbar? It should automatically go to, but yeah, ID toolbar. Maybe this should fix it. What I'm gonna do is just modify this layout, which you can see is coordinator layout, which is slightly different beast, to constraint layout, which is much simpler. And then we're gonna add some constraints, of course, and those constraints will be well, by design. We can add them using the design tab. So we're gonna just move this thing around, and then we're gonna have our fragment, which is not, which should yeah, which constraint goes to not to the top bar but to the toolbox. So those things go correct, but constraint bottom, constraint left, constraint top, and constraint top is not correct here, because constraint top we're gonna do to bottom of and to the bottom of toolbar. Toolbar is not yeah, true, that's true. So we're gonna have fragment content, yeah, and we don't want to do that. We want to say to top of parent, not the other way around. And let's see if that works good enough or not. Apparently not. Oh yeah, why not? Must be terminated. Oh yeah, sure. Because we terminated that by some weird finalizer. Okay, let's run it now. And yeah, we have our storage app, and the fragment is 0dp again, because yeah, that's my bad. And this is gonna be match parent, and this is gonna be wrap content. So let's rerun it. And yeah, they are somewhere in the middle, and that's because we didn't put gravity correctly. But we're not gonna worry about it now, because it's a detail that we can adjust later. So let's just see if data is understood correctly. So we have hello world, we're gonna have a by world, and we're gonna have by night, and then we're gonna have 55 and 1. So yeah, they do differ, and the layout is not very clean here. You can work on that on your side. that shouldn't be a big deal to I mean modify the layout to stretch when needed. Okay, so the next thing that is quite important is the possibilities to add items and to delete items. So to add items we need well, basically an activity. So let's add a new activity, and we're gonna add blank activity, or empty. I think it's called empty here. Blank is fragment, and we're gonna call it add item activity. We're gonna generate a layout file for that, and it's gonna go into the storage app. So let's create that. It's gonna be a very simple activity. We're just gonna create a few items here, and those will be plain text, text 1, text 2, and then we're gonna have a number for rating and number for age. So we're gonna call this one set it to design. I'm gonna put those items one by one next to the other, and then adjust everything here. You know what, we could actually just make that a linear layout, and this would be good enough, but since I've already started messing with it, so it's not a big deal if we continue. Okay, not nice, but should work good enough for us, for our purposes now. And then we're gonna call this one edit text 1. Then we're gonna call the second one edit text 2. And this is edit text 1, of course, and this is edit text 2. And we're gonna say edit number 1. And it goes here, and here we're gonna have edit number 2. Which is rating, but we don't care at that point. And oh yeah, we also need to do something to add the item, to like actually add. So to buttons, let's add them. Yeah, two regular buttons, and let's say we're gonna have one button here and one button here, and they're gonna be connected to bottom, and here to bottom as well, and then there will be some slight some space between them, and we're gonna call this button add, and we're gonna add this button cancel, and we're gonna call this add button, and we're gonna call this one cancel button. And this goes to add button, and this one is missing constraints, so let's add them. And that's probably this one. Should have all now. Yeah, text, of course, extract string. Again, Android loves extractions. Edit text, they do autofill, and yeah, so they do lack some details, but we don't care about them now. So this is text 1, this is text 2, this is technically a rating, and no, this is number. So Oh, there's no. Okay. Anyway, so one will be age and the second one will be rating. It doesn't matter. Okay, and then we need listeners for those clicks. Click. Okay, maybe we can do it in a good way. So let's do it here. Get find view by ID, and we want to get our ID add button. And for this one, we want to set on click listener, and this is gonna be new on click listener, and we want to just call yeah, so what we want to do is we want to actually create all the items and send it to the main activity. This is a canonical way of how we want to do it. Technically, we still have a single database, so we could do it a little differently. But yeah, let's do it properly. All right. Do something different. So let's start with toast. So make text. Get application context. All right. What else is there? Hello, and then toast long. Right, something like that. What's wrong with that? Oh yeah, sure. So just to make sure that we can actually click it, and then we're gonna set find view by ID, our ID cancel button, and then we're gonna set on click listener new view on click listener, and this one is gonna say is gonna say bye, just to make sure that we didn't mess everything up. Anything up. Well, we obviously didn't mess everything. And here is the last place we are at, and here we want to attach our fab and set on click listener to it, and we're gonna set new on click listener, and this new on click listener is gonna start activity, and well, for results is now deprecated because the new one to use is something different, not recommended anymore. So let's start a new activity with a new intent, and this new intent will be for add item activity class. Right, that's the intent we want to use. Oh yeah, and context first. Get context application context. Yeah. So one click we go to item activity, and then we can go. Well, we don't go back yet. We just start a oh yeah, again, my bad, because we've overridden it here. So our so that's pretty much the same. But let's say that the first node binding is slightly more elegant. No, it should be okay. Yeah. So now we're going to the storage app, and we click this one, and we get buy, and we click the other one, and we should get hello, but it takes a second. Yeah. Good. So now what we want to do is we want to make the those two activities communicate, and after creation, after add, we want to send a message to the main activity. Okay, so let's go. What the old version on how to do that was the main activity should start activity for result, and as you can see, it is now deprecated. And the new version is something slightly different, which is register for activity result. And this is quite contrived way of doing the same thing. So we're gonna create a new activity result contracts. Start activity for result. Don't do that. Of course, we need to import that, and a new activity result clause. Yeah, that's fine. We don't want that. That's just contract. Then we want to have new activity result callback with activity result, and then on activity result we want to first if result get result code equals activity result okay, only then we want to do something, otherwise we don't. And this is this shouldn't be an on click, this should be an on attach. On create is also okay, and on create is here. So yeah, we create it here, and then on activity result, what we want to do is we don't want to say repo insert item. We're gonna create it in a second. How this item looks. So result, we want to get data, and we want to extract extras. So we want to extract a string extra with name main text. Then we want to get string extra sec text. Then we want to get int extra, which is age with the default of 99, and data, you know what, no, with the default of -1. Of rating with the default value of -1. Okay. String main, string sec, int age, and int rating. And we were gonna just remove it remove it all now, because we're gonna do remove item data. D equals new item data, and now we're gonna say the main text here, the sec text here, the age equals, and the rating equals. Yep, and finally what we want to do is repo insert item D. And there's one more thing we want to do, and this one more thing is making sure that data is refreshed. So our f, we can do it with brute force. Will be good enough. Repo get data list. So this should refresh it, and now on click, what we want to do is we want to run it. First, we also need, I think, result launcher. Activity result launcher. And we're gonna call it RL because that's short name. And now we're gonna have intent I, new intent, this, and we want to create add item activity class. Why not? What's wrong with that? Get application context. Okay, fine. And then we're gonna have RL launch I, and this way we go. Yeah, there are more general ways of doing that, but that should be fine. Should be fine. Now we insert data and we set data, and this should be okay. Now, as you can see, this thing that we do right now, we just force the data, and we don't want to do it anymore because we have a way of inserting new records. So let's see if it works. So we have nothing right now. Let's add text to, then we can have 44 and finally 3, and then add it. And of course it doesn't work because we didn't implement it in get item activity, because we only have toasts here. And so here what we need to do, is we need to well, create a response basically. So let's do it. We have our cancel button, in which case we just set set result to activity result cancelled, and in case it was okay, we need to set result to something slightly more complex, which is activity result okay, and then our result. And our result is an intent. And our new intent has a few items. Put extra. So I'm gonna copy it, those names from here because I don't remember them. And I'm gonna set put extra, and put extra here. And what we want to put it to is find view by ID r ID main text, get text, and get content. What's the name for that? I've actually used the wrong ID here. So the actual ID that we should use is taken from here, and this is edit text 1. Edit text 1, and then we can get text of it after we cast it, of course, to edit text. Input this thing, and then we should be able to work with it. Yeah. Get text, and that's it. Yeah. And then the second thing we want to do is we want to have edit text 2, and then we want to have edit number 1, which is going to be h, and we're not going to set it to text, but we're going to set it to, well, okay. First, we're gonna set to string, but then we're gonna convert it to integer. And even if it's not here, it should be, but yeah, maybe not. Integer parse int. Okay, so this is age and this is rating, is the same thing, more or less. Obviously we're gonna use 2 here, and this is I. Okay, and that should be almost enough, except that after we set result we also should finish the activity, of course. Finish, and we also want to finish this thing here. So if it's cancelled, nothing should happen. So once we click cancel, it finishes and nothing happens. And once we click, so text 1, text 2, 44 and 22, once we click add, a new data appears, data item. And then we can have 22 and 11 and more items appear. And it's again text 2 and text 1. Let's change that to something else. And let's put 1 and 1 here, and we get a minus. And as you see, this text is not really nice, so we can adjust that any way we want. And here, for example, by using what I originally planned, which is Android orientation vertical. So if we run that, and we start already with those items because they're in the database. And it's a little nicer. Maybe we could say that the width should also match, well, not of this thing, but of the whole whole layout does. Yeah, I mean, there can be some rules for spacing here that can make the whole thing take the whole width, but it doesn't matter that much. Okay, and the last exercise that is the last part of the exercise that is there is implementing deletion of item, but I'm not gonna show it here. I'm gonna leave it for an exercise for you. It's fairly simple. What you need to do is get the data get the fragment, and on click basically get an on-click handler on this thing. You can add it on only on avatar if you want to. So add an on-click trigger deletion on the repository the same way that that we're adding it here. So here we have insert item, and then you would have delete item on on-click handler. And basically that's it. I know that was a pretty long exercise. I hope you'll be able to finish it. If not, we can extend the deadline a little bit, I think. Okay, that's it for today. Good luck.